Mohammed Bashir fled his home in Kobane to escape Islamic State. Since then, he's been smoking up to 80 cigarettes a day to cope with the stress. He often comes to this hill on Turkey's border with Syria to look over Kobane. Mohammed says he'd be smoking and drinking if alcohol were available. He just wants to forget what's happened and feel nothing. He says he's angry Islamic State is destroying his country in front of his eyes. They are murdering, stealing, taking everything. Mohammed points out the restaurant where he used to work as a chef. The building has been destroyed. We hear gunfire, but there is no way to tell which side it's coming from. Mohammed asks the others, but they don't know either. Mohammed says he wants to join the fight, but can't because he has young children. His oldest son is still fighting in Kobane, but Mohammed had to leave. He brought his family to the Turkish border town of Suruç 6 weeks ago. They were given shelter in one of the 5 refugee camps in Suruç. More than 5,000 people live in these hastily built tents without running water or electricity. Mohammed lives in this tent with his wife Salwa and 8 of his children. Salwa says she'd like to offer us tea, but at the moment there's no water. The youngest of Mohammed and Salwa's children is just 3 years old. The parents have had to explain the harsh realities of their situation to her as well. Salwa says she's told the children that there's a war going on in Kobane. But she says they still ask her why they can't return. She tells them no, there's fighting back home, and Islamic State is there. Talking about home makes her think about her 19-year-old son Ayub. He's still fighting in Kobane. Salwa doesn't even have a photograph of him. He is always in my thoughts, is all she can say. A truck arrives with blankets. The nights are already cold in the tents without any heating. One man complains that he hasn't got enough for his family. Mohammed and Salwa stay out of the dispute. Mohammed says it's hard, it feels like begging. Before the conflict he had a house and everything that goes with it. Salwa says she feels ashamed standing here. She's embarrassed. Finally, they receive their blankets, but they only get 3, too little for a family of 10. We want to know how aid supplies are organized, so we head to the city center. Suruç is governed by Turkish Kurds. It's a city of 100,000, currently hosting some 60,000 refugees. People have been flooding into the city for 6 weeks. More arrive every day. Mayor Suhel Elmez has taken responsibility for the care and accommodation the refugees receive. She set up a warehouse for humanitarian aid in an old factory. Most of the supplies were donated by the Kurdish community. Mayor Elmez is worried. The provisions they've collected so far won't be enough to last the winter. They need better tents, heating supplies, food and medicines. Put simply, they need everything. Organising the process is a logistical nightmare. The city doesn't have the resources to cope with the crisis. Elmez says only the Kurdish community has supported them so far. Before they were financing 20,000 meals a day, now it's just 10,000. They're having to split the portions to provide for everyone, and they only have 4 vehicles to distribute the goods. They need help from the international community. Elmez is constantly looking for support. As we're driving, she receives a phone call telling her an Austrian delegation is waiting in her office. The delegation wants to learn about the situation in Kobane. They're joined by a group of journalists. Süheyl Elmez sees a chance to gain international support. She inquires about aid supplies for the refugees and at the same time brings up the issue of Kurdish independence and why Kobane cannot be allowed to fall. She says Kobane is very important to the Kurds. If it falls, their 40-year struggle for independence will have been for nothing. All the victims, the arrests, all the suffering. She says the fight may go on for a long time, but the Kurds won't abandon Kobane. Elmez gets constant updates on the fighting. It's a day of mixed feelings for her. More Kurds have been killed in battles on this day. Five men died in the fighting. None were older than 30. This man says his blood is boiling with rage. They've come here to honor the young people who have died. This woman asks what Islamic State wants from them and why they want to repress them, burn their homes down and take their money. She says they claim to be fighting for Islam, but they're not Muslims, they're infidels. This graveyard was set aside for victims of the fighting. The sadness here is mixed with anger at the Turkish government. People here feel Ankara has done little to save the city. Mayor Süheyl Elmez doesn't want to accept that Turkey will only allow injured people to cross its border. People here say even those helping IS troops will be allowed to enter Turkey. Elmez says whatever she does won't be enough. She gives the refugees food and cares for them, but she still has a guilty conscience. She says if she were asked, she'd like to go to Kobane and fight herself. We head back to the warehouse to meet the Bashir family again. "14-year-old Mayasan doesn't want to join the game. She misses her home. She says if she were in Kobane, she'd be at her uncle's house, playing with her cousins and friends. They talk, listen to music and study together. We ask her what she misses most. She says listening to music and watching TV. There's some good news for the children though. Soon a makeshift school is due to open here in the warehouse. They're excited at the thought of going back to school. At 7 p.m, the food rations are handed out. Mohammed collects them for the family. He receives rice, soup and mandarins, enough for everyone. Like his daughter, he thinks about what he'd be doing in Kobane right now, cooking in his restaurant. For the time being, he and his wife don't want to think about starting a new life in Turkey.
Inshallah.
Salva says, God willing, she'd return to Kobane soon and finally see her son again. Mohammed says when he returns home, he'll smile again for the first time. His son will get married and they'll celebrate with him. Kurdish forces have been bolstered by the arrival of Peshmerga fighters from Iraq. The refugees take that as a positive sign. Tomorrow, Mohammed will return to his spot on the border and look over the town he hopes will soon be liberated.